Welcome to The More You Know, and we are in Matthew chapter 10. And now we're about to discuss Judas. The traitor. But here's a little key insight that I just love that a lot of people do not realize. Okay? First of all, the name Judas is actually Judah. Iscariot is not his last name, but could be taken from the name of the town, Kerioth, 12 miles south of Hebron. But more plausibly, Iscariot is taken from a Hebrew word meaning lock. Judah being a locksmith, he likely was the one chosen to lock the collection bag, which means he had the key and could pilfer the fund at will. It is a sad history that he wanted to lock up Jesus and control him with his own ends. So, actually, Iscariot is actually meaning and referring to, a lot of the names that people are giving in the Bible has to do with who they are, the personality, and actually what they end up doing. And with his, just like with Iscariot being his last name, it's not actually his last name. It's actually meaning who he was, traitor, and where his greed came from, because he was the locksmith, he was the keeper of all the money, and he was actually taking money from their collection that they were gathering to use for their ministry and all that stuff like that. So, and verses 9 through 10, basically in chapter 10, when Jesus is telling, when he's sending the disciples off two by two, and he's telling them, don't take no extra clothing, no extra sandals, no money, no food. The whole reason why he's doing it is not to be mean to disciples and live without. He's making sure that when they go out there and do these things, that they totally are dependent on God. Because they got to realize that God will provide for his children. He always will. He knows that you need clothes. He knows that you need food. He knows that you need this and that. And he will provide for you. So you've got to totally depend on God. Quit relying on the world. Quit relying on this. Quit relying on that. Rely on the one who created you. Then when he says, gives them the speech of like, did he not create the birds? Doesn't he provide for them the food that they need? And they're birds. So if he will provide for the birds, why wouldn't he then provide for you? And that's what he is doing by telling them to not take anything with them when they go to do these, to go out there and to be evangelists. You want him to rely on them and for them to totally understand that when they go do this, that God will provide for you. And he's saying that if anybody doesn't help you along the way, to shake it off. Shake it off, like how we always do, to shake it off. Shake the dust off your feet. Do not carry that evilness from obviously that person, because they are evil. If they don't want to help you and don't want to be guys, don't take that with you. To shake the dust off your feet, so that when you go to the next person, you're not carrying the evilness with you. So that's what it means. That nobody will receive you. Nobody won't help you. Shake it off. Shake that dust off your feet and carry on. Don't dwell on it. Don't argue with them. Just good day. God bless. Shake it off and move on. Okay, now we're moving on from to verse 25. And I know I'm going to say this correctly, but Baalzebub, whatever, Baalzebub, which we all know, it describes Satan. We all know that's a form of him. But here's something else, that there is some evidence that the Hebrew word can also mean Lord of Tricks. Which, what is the devil? Nothing but deceitful, lies, and he uses trickery. He tricks you into doing things. Just like you trick even to eating the apple. He tricks you into making you think you're crazy and that you don't like yourself, and gives you depression, all that stuff, because he is a Lord of Tricks. That's good to know that the Hebrew word means Lord of Tricks. And verse 34, where Jesus is talking about, for I do not come to bring peace, because a lot of people thought he was going to bring peace on earth, but he says, I brought a sword. So here we go. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. The Aramaic word, Harba, can mean either sword or word. The Greek word is sword. Either term signifies division. For there will be a 5 in a house, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3, father against son, son against father, and they would stand alone. That's what it means by division. Because see, with everybody sticking to the old, and just like everybody's going through warfare right now, trying to get right with God and go there, we see that our family members are against us. And see, that's where the sword comes in. Like, he's going to eventually bring peace, but he's actually bringing a sword, because there will be too much division among people. Because there's not going to be a lot of people that's going to take, you know, the love of Christ. They're not going to accept him. So there's going to be a division between family members. And that's why there's a lot of people that's fighting with their wives, their spouses, their mom and dad over religion. Because a lot of people is either stuck in that religion, or it's just a complete atheist, or what have you not. So the battle begins. The war battle. And that's exactly what that means. The devil's so battered. And so Jesus is the sword. So that's why you got to keep your armor on, you know. And you got to remember, don't place your family members above God. Because even though they may not believe and they want to stick to religion, God does say in the Bible, if you choose your children, your spouse, your parents over him, you're placing them as a God. And the fact that you're going to do that means, so that's where the division comes in. You know, you love them, but you gotta let them go. And because them loving them is not going to save your life. You want to save their life. And that's where the whole battle comes in. And that's why we're trying to, as Christians, we're trying to bring them in closer, and it hurts our hearts, because we don't want to see them go to hell. But, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If you push their head in there, they're just going to drown. You know what I'm saying? And we're in chapter 11 now, in verse 15, where he, a lot of times in the Bible we hear, anyone who has ears to hear, let them hear. This is right here, it says right here that this idiom, that means that you better listen. So, like, a lot of people just thought, oh, if anybody has ears, just if they want to hear. Actually, it's translating to, you better listen, because your ears hear, so let them hear. It means, it's not like being polite, saying, oh, if you hear it, you hear it. Those who are willing to hear, let them listen. No, it wasn't meaning anything polite. Basically, it says quite the opposite. It's demanding. You better listen. Be quiet and listen, basically. So, that's kind of like interesting, because every time I ever read that, I always thought that they was being polite. So, those who can hear, let them hear. Like, whoever's sitting down and wants to hear my words, let them hear. That is not at all what they're saying. You better listen to what I'm saying, and do it now, kind of, so to speak. Ooh. In verses 28 in chapter 11, we also know many times Jesus has said, come, follow me. Only in this verse only is the only time in the Bible that Jesus says, come to me. The rest of the time he's always saying, come, follow me. But in this verse is the only time that Jesus says, come to me. Ooh. So in verses 29, when he's talking about yoke, bend your neck to my yoke. The metaphor of a yoke is that it joins two animals to work as one. It is not simply work or toil that is the focus here, but the union with Christ. Interesting. And I love that I found out how to use this pause button, because then I'm able to skip to the more interesting parts instead of sitting here going to each one, because I'm on video and I didn't want to sit here and just be flipping through. So yay! Now we can get to more exciting ones that seem to be like more popping out instead of me going blah blah blah. Sorry, I had to, you know, I'm just a little excited that I learned something new. Haha. In chapter 12, verses 1, where they're referring to the Sabbath comes from S-H-A-B-A-T, which is a verb means to rest. What was the design to be a day of rest and intimacy with God and family was now complicated by a host of rules and tradition. So that's why Jesus made it a point to break the rules of the Sabbath thing, that where the Pharisees was getting so mad about, because it was no longer meaning the Sabbath. It was more, they was taking the Sabbath and making it all about their rules.